Hello, regular Drews.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to episode 62. We are going to be discussing today another Her Interactive PC game. This one, number 5. Can we say it, Corey?
Yes, the final scene.
Well, aren't you a regular Nancy Drew?
I learned that from the Nancy Drew detective.
Okay, go.
You think you can follow the clues and solve the case of the missing condiment, Nancy Drew?
Because I've read every Nancy Drew mystery ever written.
Nancy, please tell me you're joking.
Wow, you suck at this Nancy Drew stuff. You should get a new hobby.
My name is Carson Drew, and this is my assistant, Nancy.
Nancy Drew.
It's curtains for you, Miss Drew.
Nancy Drew strikes again.
A regular Nancy Drew.
So I think we've said before, but this game was originally released in 2001, and it was my first ever Nancy Drew game. I remember not even knowing that these games existed, and then just being in a Best Buy one day, and I saw it on the top of a bargain bin.
Oh my gosh.
Bin of computer games on CD, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, holy grail. Oh.
I love these books. What do you mean they made a game out of them? Magic. Pure magic. Oh
and
my
then I
gosh.
dug a little bit further in the pile, and I also found Treasure in the Royal Tower and begged my mom, and she let me get them, and then the rest was history from there.
Oh.
I love this
that.
game. What do you think of this one?
Absolutely just iconic. It's just it's so good. Listen, I know we just covered Message in a Haunted Mansion, and we loved Message in a Haunted Mansion. The final scene is better. It's better. It's just better. They really figured it out with the final scene, you know?
I absolutely agree, yeah.
The structure and the flow and the vibes, and yeah, there's not a whole lot I have bad to say about it, you know?
I think it's flawless. Obviously, you know, if it were made
think it has
today
some
and we
flaws.
remastered it, there could always be improvements, but I think it's amazing. I mean, I would want like more puzzles. I'd want it to be a little bit, you know, longer or something like that. But otherwise, the story itself is pretty freaking good.
Yeah, the puzzles are my main critique of it.
Okay,
it's just
well, that's fair.
Yeah, because they're just not very good. I feel like, and they're very scarce. Mostly the game is just a narrative, which is honestly fine. If that's like if you're not here to play a game for puzzles, then this is your game. You know what I mean? And not everybody is.
And this was very characteristic of the games from this time. So
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think it's excellent. And also just like considering it as a book adaptation, such a good adaptation.
Oh, I agree.
Book. Like, I know, you know, we haven't always read the book that that is linked up with each game adaptation, but we have happened to read this one. We happen to have read this one. And it is such a faithful adaptation. I mean, the only main change is that, you know, it's not Bess that is kidnapped, which is a shame, in my opinion. I do wish it could have been Bess, but I understand why they maybe chose not to do that.
Yeah, at the time, I think that probably was the best decision for their animators. Yeah.
Yeah. But like overall, like it's so faithful. It's such a faithful adaptation, and the way that they were able to maintain like that level of, you know, quality.
Sense of danger. Oh yeah.
Yes,
well,
but then
too, yeah.
But then also like make it a good game. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
Have it be so fraught and like sense of danger. Have the setting feel so rich, and you feel like you're inside of a old historic 1920s movie theater,
Right.
and you know the characters feeling real, and you know, like their motivations and everything feeling like they make sense to the context, and just the script and the dialogue so good.
Oh, I know.
So good. Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's nothing bad I can say about any of that. So
I think for looking at all the games, I think this one accomplishes that, like, putting in that sense of danger and the sense of urgency and just all around this, like, panic that Nancy's experiencing throughout. Well, I mean, it happened in the book, obviously, and then they just translated that so well into the game. I think it probably accomplished that the best of any of the games, of having this, like, oh my gosh, we got to find her right now. This is so scary, so dangerous. Yeah.
Definitely. And I don't know if we can credit Her Interactive entirely for that, because I do think a lot of that just came from the fact that it was a real good book.
It was a real good book.
They really did that in the book, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
They really made it intense, and the game definitely succeeded in that as well. Yeah.
We did cover the book in, it was episode 19. So if you guys have not heard that one yet and want to hear about the book, definitely go listen to that, because it is an excellent, excellent book, but also an excellent game.
Yes. So, I mean, we can talk a little bit about the game mechanics. This is an older one, but I think probably the first one where none of the navigation felt hard or clunky, or it didn't feel like challenging to play, right?
Right.
Didn't feel like any of the puzzles were hard to accomplish or anything like that. Yeah, I think this is the first game that really successfully created like a smooth player experience. I think Treasure on Oil Tower was really getting there. They were close, but this is the first one that actually, I think, really got it, And yeah, so it's the classic stacked book menu intro with that Nancy Drew theme song that is making the rounds on Instagram right now on all the reels. Well, I don't know if it is. I always see it in my reels.
I love that song. That song goes pretty hard. I love it. Anything want to make you want to party like that sound does, that just like instantly kicks me back to 04.
Yeah, instant serotonin boost.
Exactly.
It's old enough where Nancy doesn't have a phone, right? We have to use the landline in the ticket booth to reach the outside world. She also doesn't have a notebook with her, no checklist still, fortunately. But that's okay. I think because the game is so short and because it's so kind of structured well, you don't really need it. So it takes place over the course of about 72-ish hours, about 3 days, really one evening, and then 2 full days. And then there are events that trigger the end of each day. There's still some variability in the order that you can complete things in the game, but ultimately you have to complete certain things each day in order to trigger the end of the day and for the next day to happen. So, I mean, the premise is Nancy is visiting her friend from high school, Maya Wynn, in St. Louis, and they are going to the premiere of a Brady Armstrong movie called Vanishing Destiny, which is such a great name, by the way.
Yes.
At the historic Royal Palladium Theater. And this is going to be the last show for the Royal Palladium, as it's being torn down, like, literally in just a few days. It's built in the 1920s, but before it was a movie house, it was like a legitimate like theater for plays, and performers would come to perform. Harry Houdini, the famous musician, performed there. Did I say musician?
You did, yeah.
Great. Harry Houdini, the famous magician, performed there regularly. And then also local activists are supposedly planning this big protest to oppose the demolition of this historic theater. And so Maya is going to interview Brady Armstrong about the theater for her university newspaper. And Nancy and Maya are going to be able to enter the theater before the premiere so that they can go conduct this interview, right?
And speaking of Harry Houdini, I think we got to do our 3 words, because magic has to be one of them. Because
Thanks, I totally forgot.
this game is just I mean, in my opinion,
Yeah.
for my own nostalgic memory and everything, it's magical. But also, there's
Magic
a
on
huge
multiple
theme
levels.
of magic and magicians throughout the game, which is so
Definitely.
cool.
Magic, and then can we do just like a color? Can we do the color red? Because it's red. This game is so like
So
just
red.
crimson. Like
The
everything
Royal
is
Palladium
red.
is gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. The setting is red, but also there's something about the red that is like inciting, like it's kind of scary. There's kind of like an element of blood involved in red.
Right.
You know what I mean? I feel like just like with the vibes, like red was such an important color choice because it really, yeah, it's just like the cherry on top. Cherries are also red. Heyo. Okay, so magic, red, and then
Kidnapping. I don't.
hmm. No, let's say like press, like
Scoop?
scoop. No, I'm trying to think of a word that like kind of like encapsulates the fervor of like of the kidnapping, of vanishing destiny, of like the
Urgency.
protest. But that's related to news. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah.
or like not news, but like what is the word? Oh my gosh. Ah! I hate it.
Yeah, I'm not coming up with it.
This is like simultaneously the best and worst part of these episodes because when you have a word that's just on the tip of your tongue, it's the worst feeling, but I know what it is that I'm trying to say. It's
Right.
like press or like media
Mhm.
frenzy.
Media frenzy. There we go. I
Media
like that.
frenzy.
That works.
That's what it is. So red, magic, media frenzy. Those are our three words.
I had a little fun fact that I never knew, and like I found this out on accident while I was playing the most recent time, and I can't
Oh.
remember in the projection room where Joseph has like not the wardrobe, the thing where he hangs his coat, and then you also find the spark plug in there. There's a poster on the outside of the door for that's like I don't know, some Art Nouveau. It just looks like a pretty painting, pretty poster, but there's some words on there for like, I guess this was it's a real painting because a lot of the things in a lot of the earlier games are real paintings that they just put in the game. There's words on there, and if you Google it, you find out this painting was actually a poster for a show that took place in a theater in Paris. You Google the name of that theater, it looks exactly like the Royal Palladium.
Shut up.
Exactly like the Royal Palladium. It's so pretty. And now I can't remember the exact name of it to Google it again so that I could show you, and I couldn't find it in my search history. But
well, if you find it again, we should post it on Instagram so that
we should.
folks can
Yes.
see it, or on Patreon.
So I just
Go
thought
become
that was
a Patreon at patreon.com/regular Nancy Drew, and you
Yes.
can see it only then.
No, I just thought it was the coolest Easter egg that they found this like real place that really looked like the Royal Palladium, maybe even potentially based it off of this theater, and then put this like little reference to that, but then
That's
also had the
so-
same art
yeah.
style that they carry throughout the rest of the theater, and it's just, I thought it was so cool.
That's so careful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
so like so well done. Like such a great part of like production of this game. Like
Oh yes.
just all of the detail and like the careful consideration of things like that. Just so typical, so typifying of these early games.
I love it. I'm already getting into like exciting details though. So
Well then let's go. Let's get into it.
absolutely. Do you want to start us off with our
Sure.
big
Start us
event?
off. So Nancy has just told us that we are going into the theater early to interview Brady Armstrong, and off we go. So we're standing outside his dressing room and with Maya, and Maya tells us that she'll meet us in the lobby after his interview. And so she goes into the dressing room, and then over the PA sound system, we hear a voice that seems to be just like testing the sound system, testing the PA. It's like testing 1, 2, 3, testing, right? We hear that. And then just as we turn, and Nancy says she's going to go like check out the concession snacks or whatever while Maya's doing the interview, we hear a shrill scream from the dressing room, and Nancy says, "That sounds like Maya." She then screams for our help. She says, "Nancy, help!" And so we go rushing in, but when we get inside, the dressing room is empty. There's nobody in there, not a soul. And as we look around, it's just a small room. It's just a little room. There's really nowhere for somebody to have gone. There's a vanity, but there's also like just piles of like old crap, probably like old props, old boxes, like crates, sometimes just like literal trash.
Yeah.
In these dressing rooms. There is a phone though, and then when we step into the dressing room and look around for a second, the phone rings. So we go over to pick it up, and on the other end of the phone, which appears to be a phone with no outside lines, it's just a phone, internal phone with different locations around the theater. There's an electronic voice on the other end of the phone that says, "If they knock the theater down, the girl goes with it." And then the line goes dead. Oh my god! What an intro. I mean...
Has there ever been such an exciting intro in any of these games?
No. I don't think so.
I mean, maybe Alibi and Ashes, arguably, but like... with Nancy getting arrested like in the first minute, but...
No, this is worse. This is more scary.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
it's like at least we've like escaped the fire and we're fine. And we're just dealing with people. But this is like somebody is in mortal peril still.
True, yeah.
You know?
That's true, yeah.
Also, it's our friend.
It's very scary, yeah.
You know? It's like, so it's more, it feels worse than it being like Nancy herself. I don't know.
Right.
But so... we're looking at the phone, and when somebody calls on one of these phones, you can see it light up from where the call came from. So it seems like the call came from the women's dressing room, which is interesting. Then the phone rings again, so we pick it up. But this time, it's a normal voice, and the call's coming from the projection room. And at first, we think that this is Maya's kidnapper again, right? Nancy picks up the phone and she's like, "If you hurt her, I'll come for you," basically. But the man on the other line introduces himself as the caretaker, Joseph Hughes, and he's called because he's looking for Brady, who should be in that dressing room, right? So we explain what's just happened. You know, our friend has just been kidnapped, and the kidnappers just called us. Uh-oh. And so he gives us some very useful information. He tells us that there is only the one door out to the hall where Nancy was. So the kidnappers must have taken Maya through the secret passageway. What? Sorry. Stop. Pause. Rewind. Freeze. Secret passageway?
Magic words. Oh my gosh. Tell us more.
He says, yes, there is a secret passageway that goes from the men's dressing room to the women's dressing room, which... hold on a second. Why? For tete-a-tetes, yes.
That got cut from the game. Yes, that was originally...
Shut up.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
There are, there's audio files online where it's like Nancy talking about these things that ultimately got cut from the game, and it used to be just to sneak between rooms so that, I guess, guests don't see you or...
hooking up. Yeah.
And then, yes, people would have a little rendezvous in the back hallway between shows, I guess.
Wow.
Because you can't just do that in your dressing room. Whatever. Sure.
Oh, yeah, but interesting. So he tells Nancy to go find the secret passageway, look in the secret passageway. She might be in there. And he'll come find us as soon as he can. Before we're able to look for the secret passageway, though, Brady Armstrong comes into the room. Brady Armstrong is attractive for an animated character of 2001, but not that attractive to be a superstar. He seems to think that we are just like an enamored fan that has snuck into his dressing room.
To be fair, that's what happens in the book. They do that.
That's true. That is why they were trying to get in there. It wasn't for an interview. It was just because Bess wanted to.
Right.
So funny.
Sorry, anyway.
But Nancy is like, no. I am a reporter. Actually, my friend's a reporter. She's like, she's been kidnapped. And he, of course, offers his help. And so he leaves the dressing room to, I guess, go search or whatever. And we can continue searching the room. Like I said, it's full of junk, and we can't really dig through it very much, but there is like a kind of a desk over in the corner where the phone is. There's a vanity with like a little chair where there's like makeup and stuff, and Brady's obviously been using that. And an armoire in the corner, and then like a little gross sink to the side as well.
Yeah.
In our search of the dressing room, we can find that there's a locked drawer in the vanity. We're going to have to get into that later. There's a magic wand in the armoire that you need to grab. And then there's also a lever behind a picture that we have to pull that opens up the secret passageway, which is a door in the wall off to the side. Do you want to take it, Corey?
Sure. So if we pull that lever, it will automatically open up our secret passageway for us. We can walk through there. It's really just very simple, like straight path. You just go turn down the hall, turn down the other hall, and then you end up basically in same situation with the women's dressing room. So it's the same thing where the women's dressing room also has a lever, and it also has the thing that opens up into the secret passageway. There's not really anything in the passageway except some graffiti, and then so the snake was here. There also is a like a so and so loves so and so. So it's like, oh, another rendezvous that was happening back here. Somebody needed to immortalize their love for one another. But so we open up the other secret passageway that leads into the other dressing room, the women's dressing room, and we hear, I gotta cut this short, Hal. Someone just climbed out of my wardrobe.
The best.
So we, once we're actually in the room, we're immediately put into a conversation with someone named Simone, who we quickly learn is Brady's agent. And she kind of asks us what we're doing here, and we say that our friend's just been kidnapped. And she's like, well, I got problems too. My premiere's like about to fall apart, so get out of here. So we can look around the room a little bit, but we can't really talk to Simone anymore at this point. Pretty similar to the men's dressing room, this one is also full of junk. Just a bunch of stuff kind of piled up everywhere. There's a plunger in the sink, and it looks a little dirty maybe, but otherwise nothing really significant. But now we can go explore the rest of the Palladium Theater, and we can never actually leave the theater, so we can only explore the theater in this game. But we do have the main house where we have the stage and all the seating, and then some balconies that like look into the house, and then there's 2 hallways on either side that lead back to backstage where the dressing rooms are. Backstage we see some normal backstage stuff like equipment for lighting and some boxes and another phone back there. We can also explore the lobby, which there is a ticket booth in the lobby, and then just the concession stand, and then upstairs there's a balcony that looks over the house as well, and then the projection room upstairs. Yeah, it's an absolutely gorgeous place. Everything is crimson red, like you said. But it is pretty run down. You can tell it's very clearly in a bad state, but you can tell it has some really rich history. This place obviously housed a lot of incredible performances over the years, probably drew some pretty big crowds. And again, everything is red velvet, everything, red seats, red carpet, except for the things that are like beautiful, rich, dark wood tones, which is just a beautiful contrast to all the red. I love it so much. Let's see here. Oh, also, when we're exploring the backstage area a little bit, we do see that there's like a trap door, just like very visible, that we'll need to figure out how to get, down into that trap door. We do, in the lobby, we do meet a character named Nick Falcone, and he tells us, we tell him about the kidnapping, and he tells us that there is one outside line in the place, and it is in the ticket booth, so he recommends that we go use that to call the police, which we do, and Nancy has to specify that we have a kidnapping on our hands, but no longer in progress, although, like, it was literally 1 minute ago, so I guess
I would have said it was in progress.
Still in progress, yeah, they could still be getting away with Maya right now, and but anyway, the police, like, not that they don't care, but they couldn't really be bothered to do anything, and they're like, well, if she's not back in 24 hours, then I guess we can come take a look around.
Right.
But honestly, this is probably like a kid's prank or something like that. You know, college kids go missing all the time. They run off. It's spring break, right? Like, no, it's not. Anyway, so the police just think that this is a prank, clearly. And Nancy's like, no, this isn't like Maya. She's so responsible and she would never just run off. And like, also, we had these specific plans to go do this interview. This was really important to her. We do also learn that Maya's parents are visiting Vietnam this time of year, so they can't be contacted to be notified of what's going on. So it looks like this is all up to Nancy.
Yup. So she also mentions, like, hey, also the theater is going to be demolished in 72 hours. Like, does that not warrant some urgency? Like, shouldn't you come and investigate? Because what if, like, she's here in the building? And he's like, no, it's not likely that Maya's in the building anymore. If she was actually kidnapped, she's now probably in a second location. And, he doesn't seem to be very interested in the fact that, like, we got a phone call and, well, I don't even know that Nancy really mentions the phone call, which is crazy to me. It's like the evidence that you have that Maya was actually kidnapped and being held in the theater, like you have, like someone called you from an inside line in the theater and said
Right.
that if the building is knocked down, the girl goes with it. Tell the police that, Nancy? But anyway, he says if we can't prove that she was taken by force, he can't do anything. Okay, so that's what we have to do, right? So we have to find this evidence that we can report to the police. Back in the lobby, we can talk a little bit more to Nicholas Falcone. He does seem to think that we're here to worship at the altar of Brady Charmstrong. He's a very salty guy.
I love
Quite
Nicholas Falcone.
lovely, though, yes. He expresses his annoyance at the premiere and this whole, like, press jerk-off situation. He's very anti-capitalist and thinks the movie is just, like, pandering to the masses, or, like, I forget exactly what he says, but he's full of, like, these amazing, like, takes and, like, very clever phrases that he has.
This is feeding corporate Generica.
Yes, corporate Generica, yes. But Nicholas explains that he's here as a representative of the protesters outside, and his organization had it, or Humans Against the Destruction of Illustrious Theaters.
What an acronym.
Frequently organize in situations like this and protest when they are going to demolish an illustrious theater. It's a very on-the-nose acronym. We tell him about Maya's kidnapping, and he's kind of pleased, honestly, because he thinks that it'll help the cause by getting the demolition called off. Which is just...
Nancy tells him, and he literally says, right on.
Uh-huh.
What? Dude.
Oh my god. So that's suspicious. Also on day one, he eventually tells us that the dude who currently owns the theater is the descendant of J.J. Thompson, who's the original owner, and is going to build some, like, hulking megaplex of, like, a theater in its place after the building is demolished. So Nicholas is, of course, against this, right? He also tells us that his desire to protect the theater is also kind of personal because his grandmother, Louisa Falcone, designed the molds for all the plasterwork on the theater. So essentially, by protecting this theater, he's trying to protect his heritage. He also explains that his grandma was never paid for the work that she did at this theater because J.J. Thompson ran out of money, and she never sued him or anything like that. I guess he thinks that she didn't know how to do that, or that she could do that to get her money. So she was, like, broke because she was never paid for this job, and then the Great Depression hit, and so she could never work as an artist again because she couldn't make enough money doing that. So yeah.
I'd be bitter too if, that was the family story. Yeah.
I'll also say this is a great adaptation moment from the books as well, because in the books, this is pretty much directly from the books, except Louisa was Louis in the books.
Yeah, this is Grandpa.
So this is a little girl power moment where we've done a little gender swap, and which is really nice.
Also, Simone Mueller was Simon Mueller in the book.
Right.
His agent was male, yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
Go Her Interactive. Nice little switch out there.
So he says in this great quote, so saving this theater is not just for history, it's for justice. And then he also asks us a favor. He says, hey, since you're going to be looking for Maya in this place anyway, can you just keep an eye out for anything that might prove Louisa Falcone was involved in, like, the building of this theater? So, sure, great, easy enough, will do,
Yeah. We'll put it on the priority list. Sure
yeah,
thing.
yeah. He also frequently tells us to fight the power, which is my
Excellent
favorite
catchphrase.
Nicholas Falcone line. Also in the lobby is a game machine. I don't really know what to call it. It's not like a arcade game machine. It's like a really old-timey game called the Bee's Knees, where we have to, like, move a music note token to get to, like, this dancer token and avoid, like, the other music note I don't know. This is clearly not actually an old game, which is kind of irritating. It's just like a little kind of puzzle that we have to complete. And once we do that, we get a little gear thing as, like, a prize. This is weird.
Yeah.
This, I think, is one of the things that took me out of the game, because I'm like, this is not fit into this old theater. And I think they tried to do it. They tried to get it to fit by, like, making the theming seem, kind of like old-timey or whatever, but ultimately the game itself is not. And then the prize that we get is so lame. It's like, this is the prize? Like, what is... Obviously, we're going to need it later, but it doesn't seem like a prize that you would win from a game machine in a theater lobby.
Well, what we need the gear for later, it almost seems like someone locked away what's in the box that the gear opens and then took it apart so that no one could access it. Maybe they put it, like, in the little prize compartment and then it just, it spits out a prize and that just happened to be the last thing in there. Possibly.
Maybe.
But maybe that was just to keep somebody from accessing what we use that for later. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
That's a stretch.
I'll
just
consider
guessing.
It.
Yep.
But yeah, so from the lobby, we can pretty easily get to the projection room. And so we can go up there and talk to Joseph, caretaker, and that's kind of his home base. That's where he lives. But side note, didn't he say he was going to come find us and he just never did?
Yeah.
Great.
The first time I played this slowed me down for a really long time with progressing in the game because I couldn't find the projection booth because it's upstairs.
Yeah, you have to turn, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I didn't realize it was there. And so when you're in the lobby, there's 2 grand staircases that go up either side, and then either of those staircases go to the balcony where you can sit and watch in the house. But then also, if you just turn down this little path that connects the stairways, that's where the door of the projection room is. And it took me so long to find it, especially because I thought Joseph was coming to us. So I was like, maybe I'll just, like, walk around and wait until I run into him. Yeah, so.
Wow.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, okay, yeah, that's a good critique.
But we do find it.
We do, yes. So up there in the projection room, this is Joseph, the caretaker. He's the one who just called us and told us that he would meet us, even though he didn't meet us. And we can bring him up to speed about the police and the need for the evidence that this was, like, a real emergency situation. Joseph tells us that he checked all the exterior doors and that they are locked, and the only people who have been in the theater are Nancy, Maya, Brady, Simone, Nicholas Falcone, and himself. Great. Thank you for summing up our suspect list, Joseph.
Yes.
He says he didn't notice anything suspicious at the time of the kidnapping because he was up here in the projection room sound testing. And of course, remember that we did hear him over the PA, so that makes sense to us. We asked for blueprints of the theater so that we can do a thorough search, and he suggests that we call the county and ask for the original blueprints, but to ask him if we need help with anything because he's worked here for the last 40 years, and so he knows his way around, and, we can come to him for anything that we might need. 40 years is a long time, man. That's a long time to work in one place. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Also, he doesn't look that old to me. Doesn't look like he could have worked here for 40 years. He looks like he's maybe 60, right?
But you could have worked there for 40 years when you're 60.
I
Imagine
guess.
He started when he was 20, first job out of college or whatever.
In the 1960s, that would have been, I guess.
Maybe.
Maybe. Right? Maybe so, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Who knows? In the hallway to either side of the auditorium, we can read all these articles and plaques about. Sorry, this is kind of a weird place to talk about this.
No, I mean it comes up relatively soon anyway.
Okay.
So
So after some further exploration, we can look in all the hallways, and it's definitely important to read all the different articles and plaques about like Harry Houdini, who frequented the theater. We can also read kind of about J.J. Thompson and the original owner and all that stuff. Um, so it's very interesting plaques in the hallway that you should read. And then throughout the rest of the theater, there's also a bunch of little random things to find and collect, including a piece of gum stuck to the bottom of a seat that we have to pick off with a magic wand that we found.
well, that's
Ew.
because we go into the balcony
I
and
know,
see that
yeah.
we need the gear.
Yes.
So
Yes. I know, but it's still gross. It's like Nancy
It
is
is
just like
gross.
literally going around picking up trash, because there's also like a quarter off the floor of one of like the popcorn rim
Yeah.
boxes, theater boxes that she picks up. It's like Nancy's literally just picking up trash. Just trash.
It's like, I do need 25 cents. I know that my friend might be getting murdered right now, but I need
Ooh, a
25
quarter.
cents. It is kind of weird that you can pick up these things before Nancy even realizes that she needs it. But I mean, that's the case in a lot of games. But we do see that there's a larger gear on the balcony, like on this
Right.
little ledge that's like, if Nancy tries to reach it herself, she'll fall over the edge of the balcony and die. But if you use the magic wand, then she can reach it. So,
do you want to take it? Do you want to talk about the trapdoor?
oh, sure. So at this point, we can go try to find our way into that trapdoor that's in the backstage area. There is this large crate that's like sitting on top of it, but we can just see underneath it that there's this outline of where the trapdoor is. Well, of course, there is, the rope and pulley systems like for the curtain and everything backstage, but we can use one of the pulleys to lower this rope that has a massive hook on it, and the crate conveniently has a rope around it, so we just hook that hook. We take the hook and we
Hook the
put
hook.
it hook the hook on the rope, and then we can use the pulley to lift the box, and then from there we can crawl under the box and open that trap door, and then we can get down in there, and that takes us into the basement. It just seems to be like an old storage space and workspace. There's it looks like a generator down there or something, just behind the scenes inner workings of this building. There is also this creepy old animatronic puppet game where you can go and he's like a magician and you push the button, and if you pick the right card he gives you a prize. It's clearly it needs maintenance or something, and that's why it's probably sitting down here in the basement. But we do play that little game, and when we win we get this little capsule thing that comes out, and we open it up and there's a magic flash paper ring, and it has some instructions. It says if you pull the tab it'll do this flash and smoke thing. Kind of a cool little reference to our magic history.
This is the game, or this game machine, the animatronic puppet game. This is what needs to be in the lobby.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Yes.
Get rid of that bee's knees game. Give us a different puzzle to access that gear, and put this one in the lobby.
Maybe it was originally and they swapped it out because it broke or something.
Maybe.
But there's also a safe in the wall, and the lock on it is just suits of cards, and you just make them all spades, and then it opens. So worst lock ever. But we open up the door to the safe, and we find just this little puzzle box inside. There's an image on the box itself. It is an Alphonse Mucha painting, which is absolutely gorgeous. It's his Zodiac painting. You have to kind of unscramble the image itself, make it a full image again, and then you can open the box itself. Once the box is open, it puts out this little tray thing, and there's a spot where some gears have been missing. Well, what do you know? Where have we found some gears that we'll need? Put those gears in place, and they start spinning, then it opens up another little compartment that has some documents in there. And an old key. So we take the old key, and then we read this old document. It's a letter from Harry Houdini, written in March 1925. It's not it's addressed to Harry Houdini from J.J. Thompson, the original owner of the Palladium Theater. And it says that J.J. Thompson is promising Harry Houdini $50,000 if he can successfully pull off a stunt that he calls the watery grave. Which I guess is like he's in a tank on stage and has to get out or something like that. And of course, Houdini did it and succeeded in the stunt. And so now JJ is writing because he didn't expect him to actually do it and he doesn't actually have the money.
Oh,
So instead, he says, instead of the 50 grand, what if I give you 50% of the Palladium? Like 50% of the rights to this theater.
oh my God.
And at the end of the letter, there's some like contractual terms, and it's like sign here if you agree. And there's 2 signatures there, one from Houdini, one from Thompson. So clearly, that's actually what happened. Is J.J. Thompson wasn't the full owner of this theater at one point, so likely was not the full owner at the time of his death. Meaning that whoever is doing all this construction, whoever is doing all the demolition now, doesn't fully have the rights to do that.
Woo, boy.
Very interesting. So we go tell Nicholas that we found this letter, and I don't know that they know who the owner is, that Nicholas says it's just some bigwig guy that is trying to be anonymous or something like that. Is that right?
B. Thompson. That's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all we know is just B. Thompson. So he says he's going to do some research into what happened to Houdini's 50% stake. And he's also going to see if he can use that to get the demolition stopped, and then we are going to continue looking for Maya. So we do that, and then we get a little thing over the PA system. Joseph comes on and says, "Come quick, I found something. Come to the projection room." So we run up there, and he hands us Maya's press pass. He says Brady found it somewhere in the building and gave it to him. So this is the evidence that we need to get the police out here to come investigate. So we go call Sergeant Ramsey, the guy in missing persons that we've been working with, and we tell him that we found the press pass, and he's like, "Yeah, that's not proof of kidnapping, though." And she's like, no, you don't understand. Like Maya would never leave this. Like her work is too important to her. And he's like, no, it could have just fallen off, or maybe she threw it off, or whatever.
It's kind of true. Like he kind of has a point.
I mean, yeah.
But it's also like, dude, somebody's
with everything
missing.
else.
Yeah.
And like Nancy heard the scream, and it's like, yeah, okay. So, and the pass itself is fine. It's not damaged. It wasn't like, there's nothing in the area where it was found that was disturbed or anything like that. So we mention again that, hey, remember this theater is going to get knocked down in like 2.5 days now. And also Nicholas Falcone thinks that she's still in the building. And he's like, Nicholas Falcone, what are you talking about? Do you know him? Are you in leagues with him? Has he been working with you? And Nancy's like, no, I'm not in leagues with him. He's here at the theater. I've spoken to him. And he says, do you have any idea who Nicholas Falcone is or what he's been up to? And Nancy's like, what are you talking about? We learn from Sergeant Ramsey that apparently Nicholas Falcone will do anything and everything to save a theater, including kidnapping. Because last year, at a theater in Nashville, where Haddett was protesting, a girl went missing. And I think that girl happened to be, like, the daughter of, like, the guy that was in charge of the demolition or something. Turns out Nick Falcone had staged her kidnapping to get that demolition to stop, and he has a criminal record. All right. So we emerge from the ticket booth to go, obviously, question Nick about
Nicholas.
Yeah. But at that moment, in like probably one of the creepier cutscenes from the games, Joseph just like, as we're like opening the door, Joseph just like appears in the doorway and it's like, well, time to go to bed, Nancy. Go get some. And Nancy's like, I'm not tired. I need to keep looking for Maya. And he's like, nah, back to your hotel with you. And then the day just ends. End of day 1. Oh, do you want to start us with day 2?
Yeah. It's very similar to, what's it, in the TV show where Frank and Joe just like drop Nancy off at her hotel and tell her that she needs to get rest or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like that.
Was that in the Dracula episode?
I think so.
Yeah, probably.
And it's just like...
Nancy can decide when to go to bed herself. Thank you very much. We should just be glad she doesn't have a concussion yet. Really,
Yeah.
that's what we should be glad for.
So she doesn't get I mean, like, aside from, like, maybe in some of, like, the second chance
Oh,
situations.
no, not in this game.
She doesn't get concussed in this game.
Which is
Excellent.
rare for Nancy.
Rare.
Good job, Nancy.
So on the morning of day 2, we arrive back at the theater, and we kind of, walk straight in, and we see that someone has sent a funeral wreath to the lobby of the theater with a deepest sympathies card attached to it. Ugh!
Oh, and the message is just so creepy as well.
I didn't see the message. Okay, this is where I have to tell you all that I didn't actually play the game this time around because I was so ill. I couldn't do it, but I had to. So I ended up just watching a playthrough of it.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right, and so in the playthrough, the person was clearly, I think, just following the walkthrough, and so they didn't necessarily look at everything that I would have looked at. But what does the message on the wreath say?
Planning a funeral is such a pain. Wouldn't you rather just stop the demolition?
Yeah.
Chilling.
Ugh. Barf. So there's also a bunch of missing persons posters, just kind of littered around. Obviously they're for Maya, but really the posters kind of talk more about Brady because Brady is offering a reward for Maya. And so there's even like a picture of Brady on the missing persons poster, which is kind of confusing. It's like Brady's not missing. Yeah. So we go upstairs and talk to Joseph. He is also fired up about this whole situation. He's really annoyed about the missing persons posters and implies that they were created by Simone just to essentially make Brady look good. Yeah.
And make Maya look bad. If you read the description she put of Maya, it's not the nicest. It's like oily skin, her teeth are crooked.
Yeah.
Her hair's a
racist?
mess.
Is it racism?
Maybe.
Because Maya's an Asian woman. So...
Yeah, she's supposed to be Vietnamese. It doesn't really say her hair is a mess. I think it actually says that her teeth are in good repair. I think that's the wording that they use. It's like,
that's almost worse.
Yeah.
That's almost worse.
I've never seen like a description of somebody beyond like eye color, height, hair color, skin tone. Not describe her teeth. That's weird.
Describe her teeth. So weirdly specific. Why did you feel the need to include that?
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So further on day 2, Joseph can also tell us some other stuff. He tells us that because we ask what his plans are once the theater has been demolished, and he tells us that he's going to go to Greasewood, Arizona, where his brother lives, and they're going to start a theater together, because apparently there's not a theater in Greasewood. So, okay, cool. That's interesting. Sounds fun. He also tells us that the Historical Society has been and is close to having the theater declared a historic landmark. We can also ask him about Nicholas, right? Because of everything that we learned from the police about Nicholas, we're like, why the heck is this guy here, right? And Joseph says that he has been letting him use the lobby as headquarters. He doesn't think that Nick is dangerous because he's known Nicholas since he was a little boy and he's been visiting the theater for years, and so he's not really concerned about it. He doesn't think he's dangerous at all. We can also go confront Simone about these posters, and she tells us that the premiere is off, but she's clearly just using this kidnapping as a way to just drum up positive press for Brady, which is, of course, infuriating. She doesn't even seem to know Maya's name. I think she literally says, like, Maya, what's her name?
Yeah, she does.
And Simone tells us that Brady is out putting up those missing persons posters all over town, and then he's going to be back later for a press conference that she's called. Seriously? So we're like, hey, Simone, can you, like, not have a press conference here later? We don't want the press here before the police have a chance to come here and investigate. Like, it seems like a nightmare, seems like a bad decision. And basically Simone is just kind of like ignores Nancy and just says that she's kind of like writes her off and says, oh, I'm so impressed by your spunk, kid. Have you thought of a career in show business? And she wants to give like Nancy like a stage name because Nancy Drew is so small town or whatever. And it's just so frustrating. Such
This
a
is our
frustrating
first instance
conversation.
of Samantha Quick, though, in the
Mm,
series, which is
mhm.
fun. That comes
Something
back in
like
later games.
Samantha Quick. Very interesting, yes. So, this kind of brings into question, did Simone engineer this kidnapping just to help Brady's career? Like, did she create this situation so that she could kind of capitalize off of it? Maybe? Um, and we kind of, ask, like, so, hey, what were you doing during the kidnapping, Simone? And she says that she was on the phone doing business when the kidnapping happened.
All right.
I don't know why Nancy doesn't ask who and when and if we can call that person and confirm her alibi, but whatever. We can say goodbye. I love this. This is maybe one of my favorite Nancy Drew goodbyes, I think, ever. She leaves by saying, I think your phone's about to ring. Just,
I love it.
I want to start using that.
Right.
To people I don't like. I think your phone's about to ring. And then just like, it's like, no, pal. So good. So good.
Why can't we be that sassy with Tino Balducci in Last Train to
I
Busan
know.
Canyon? I love the sass in this game.
It's pretty good. It's pretty top tier sass. So we can confront Nicholas too, right? Because of what we learned from the police, the previous kidnapping thing. He says he's not an eco-terrorist and he would never kidnap someone who wasn't in with the plan and down with the cause.
Eco-terrorist implies
Yeah.
like burning trees down, and
Is that what it implies? I thought it was like people. Hold on. Now I gotta look it up. Eco-terrorism. An act of violence. No. So it's not like doing ecological terrorism. It's about committing terrorism for like pro-environment things. So like the use or threatened use of violence of a criminal nature against innocent victims or their property by an environmentally oriented subnational group for environmental political reasons.
But he's not an environmentalist either.
No, he's not, which
He's
is weird. So it's a weird thing to say.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, so he says he's not an eco-terrorist. Okay, great. So he essentially just denies it, and we can't really ask any further questions, which is interesting. But presumably, this means that the girl who was kidnapped back in Nashville or whatever was in with the plan and down with the cause. And that kind of...
They definitely make it seem like that, yeah.
That definitely kind of matches up with kind of what the investigator was talking about, because he said that the girl was later found cozying up to Nicholas Falcone in a cafe. So it kind of seems like they just had something going on, and she was supporting his cause by, making this plan with him. So, all right. We can ask him about the Historical Society a little bit and say, like, hey, why aren't you working with the Historical Society to try to get this place, listed as a historical landmark or whatever. And he says that they're just a bunch of bureaucrats, trying to cut through red tape or whatever, but his organization is about action. Okay, so much for you not being an eco-terrorist. He also tells us that during the kidnapping, he was outside with the protesters, so he couldn't even have been the one to kidnap her. Okay.
Can we get t-shirts to say "In on the plan and down with the cause"?
Oh, yes. Definitely. That's a good one. That's a good one.
It's a great line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does tell us, though, that you remember yesterday that we, the big discovery that we made about Houdini's 50% stake in the theater. He tells us that he was actually able to locate a descendant of Harry Houdini, who appears, so she was the wife of one of Houdini's cousins or something, so she's essentially like a cousin by marriage of Houdini. And her name is Eustacia Andropov, and we can go call her.
She's amazing.
This is the best. She's an old lady. She's not voiced by Lonnie Minnelli, is she?
No.
Okay. I was trying to listen because Lonnie Minnelli is kind of classic at doing like that kind of like old lady voice too. Mm-hmm. So I was like, is that her? But it's not.
But with the Russian accent.
Yeah.
Her impatience for all things ever.
Mhm.
I love her so much.
She's clearly very grumpy. She's an older lady, but she's very she's very salty and just over it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But we introduce ourselves and we ask about the theater. And yeah, she tells us that she knew that Houdini owned half of that theater before he died. She says that Houdini would never have returned his half to JJ. She calls him I forget
Mr.
what she calls him.
Stupendous.
Yes.
James the Jehoshaphat? Mr. Stupendous? Not on his life.
And she says that actually Harry had a plan to leave his half of the theater to someone he admired, but she didn't really know who. She thought maybe it was like a protege of his, maybe. And we ask if she can tell us more, and then she says she doesn't have time to tell us anything else because she's 96. So good. She tells us that we should call the Library of Congress because his letters, Harry Houdini's letters, are at the Library of Congress, and that maybe there's some information in those letters about who he did actually leave the theater to. And she tells us to tell Sherman Trout that she sent us.
With one of the greatest lines ever, one of my second favorite line in this game is, "You tell that Sherman Trout, you're not dead yet, Shermie. Get up and make yourself useful." So sassy.
So sassy.
So funny.
So we call Mr. Sherman Trout and ask about Houdini's letters, and he tells us that we'll need to visit in person to see them. Oh, we obviously can't go to DC. Kind of in a pickle here, Sherman. And he's like, oh, I don't have time to run research errands for you. I work at the Library of Congress and I'm so important and, sorry, I can't help you basically. But we explain about, the kidnapping and the theater demolition and everything, and we're trying to save a historic theater and all that stuff or whatever. And then he agrees. He's like, yeah, okay, I suppose I can
I'll
take a
make
look.
myself useful. Sure.
And yes, try to find this information for us. And he says that if he finds anything, he'll send it to us. He says he'll send us a slide, a copy, a slide, not just a photocopy.
Right.
But a slide of the letter. Why? Why would we not do a photocopy? It's 2001. We had photocopies. We don't have to use slides.
Have to make things more difficult.
Anyway. Okay, so we need to keep our eyes peeled for that coming in from Sherman Trout. At this point, we can go talk to Brady, and we can ask him about the press pass, remember, because he found the press pass. But he seems confused as to where he actually found it. At first, he says he found it in the basement, but then he rethinks, and he's like, no, the balcony. It was the balcony. And it's like, you don't know? You don't remember? Weird. And Nancy is pissed at him, right? Because of all this press stuff. I can't believe, there's going to be this press conference, these missing persons posters, all that stuff. She's mad at him. But he tells us that he's just a hostage on Simone's runaway bus and that there's nothing he can do to stop this. And he just has to, essentially play his part and go along with her plan for his own fame. Such an ass.
Because that's easier than finding a spine and standing up to her, but...
Right. And says he has to leave anyway to go to the press conference. Great. And so at this point, the press conference is happening after we have this conversation. And if we go into the ticket booth, we can listen in to the press conference, which you don't have to, but it's excellent. And you really actually do have to, just for your own edification. It's so funny. It's such a funny scene. Simone says that she's sorry that their meeting isn't more festive, but it's not. Oh my God. It's just a train wreck. Because Simone is awful. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry that we have to gather under such sad circumstances, that we're not at this beautiful premiere of Vanishing Destiny, Brady's new movie, and all of this stuff. And instead we have to, deal with this inconvenient kidnapping of this girl. She mispronounces Maya's last name, and Nicholas Falcone has to correct her. Mm-hmm. And she also waxes on about how brave and relentless Brady is. And she talks about all the efforts that Brady has gone through to find Maya and all this stuff. It's clearly just a press conference about Brady, not about Maya's kidnapping. Meanwhile, Nicholas is in the audience or amongst the press or whatever, and is just cracking jokes throughout. They are so good, peak comedy. Like he's like, Mr. Armstrong, or he said, Mr. Charmstrong. Do you think that your fans prefer you more in your chicken suit, or what does he say?
In the wig, right?
In the wig or the chicken suit? Miss Mueller, you are Mr. Charmstrong's agent. What do you think, chicken suit or tiny wig? So good. So good. Whoever wrote that, excellent. I want to write scripts for Nancy Drew games. That would be so fun. Anyway, Nicholas manages to eventually redirect the press to his van so that he can talk about the protests in the theater, which is clearly so much more interesting than whatever Brady Armstrong jerkfest this is turning out to be.
Right. So, while everyone is outside with the press conference, we have a prime opportunity to go snoop because no one's in the building.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? We go right to Simone's stuff and start looking through her bag. She does have, if we look through her camera, we find pictures of Brady holding Maya's press pass. Or like we see a picture of it, it's just like on the ground. And then we see in the next photo, Brady has picked it up and he's in the basement. And there's just like different angles that they've taken this photo. They've clearly like taken like a little photo shoot with the press pass. Like, okay, now he's standing up against this wall. Now he's standing up against this wall. Now from this angle. Now he's up on the balcony. As though like they decided that it should have been found in the balcony instead for some reason.
Better lighting, presumably.
Surely. So that's kind of weird. And then also we see a receipt from a florist that's for a funeral wreath. So clearly Simone was the one that ordered that funeral wreath.
She's the worst! The worst.
The worst of the worst. And we can break into her phone as well. She has like the password just clearly written on a business card in her wallet. So we break into her phone. I will say we see some emails in there from Maya. Her email address is scoopwin at whatever edu for her college.
So good.
I thought that was really cute. I don't think that we find much more in her phone other than just like some other emails about Brady's press stuff. We do see some other photos of Brady in the chicken suit and in the tiny wig, so that's fun. We can also get into, because she is like situated at the vanity in the women's dressing room, we can also get into the drawer of there, and we find a little bobby pin in there. So now that we have our bobby pin, we can go pick some other locks in the building. One that is locked is a drawer that's in Brady's dressing room that's on the vanity there. So we go and we, open up that drawer with the bobby pin and we find inside a book on how to like perform certain magic tricks, and like it's an instruction guide for production people and like how to like help set up this magic trick and like how Houdini basically pulled off one of his stunts. So one of the stunts that we learned about was, I think it was just called the iron cage or something like that. So essentially the idea was that Houdini got like a volunteer from the audience or maybe his assistant or someone. There's two large iron cages that were lowered from the ceiling and are just kind of like hanging midair on the stage. He gets in one, the other person gets in one. I guess they put a curtain over it, and then when they open the curtain back up, they have swapped cages. So that's the whole magic trick. But then we see that actually there's a passageway underneath. We see this like diagram in the book that there's a passageway underneath the stage where they like dropped down under the cages, swapped places, and then came back up into the opposite cage. So we do also learn in the book, though, that there is another room, another secret place under the stage, not just, the little tunnel where they can swap places, but there's a whole room under there, actually. And that was originally like a green room or a getting ready room for the magician. So this was the magician's room. So we run to the projection room so that we can try to orchestrate this because, of course, the controls for the cages are in the projection room. Convenient that the cages have just still been hanging on these chains from the ceiling
this is
all these years.
It's like how there's no way that this is the exact same setup as it was in 1925.
Right.
Like
something would have broken. Like
I I get the lowering of the cages. I understand the magnets and the mirrors. I'm sure that works just fine. But up in the projection room, it's like buttons. It's like electronic buttons. It's not like manual levers or anything like that. They're literally just like, it's like in the like lighting like rig for that doesn't make any sense. There's no way.
If Houdini did this trick, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I was just saying that, like, if it wasn't always like this, that means that people have been performing this trick here more recently, which doesn't make any sense.
Like, Houdini would have performed this one time, or maybe, like, you know, he did, like, a show where it was, like, a series of these shows where, you know, how often can you really do that trick and still be original? And then they're taking up, like, this whole production board in the projection room just for the controls for this one thing.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
Don't make no sense.
But yeah, so we're on the way to the projection room to actually go try this out. And on the way there, a creepy voice, that electronic voice that we heard at the very beginning, comes over the PA system and says, "Get smart, Nancy Drew. You're wasting precious time. Stop the demolition or you'll never see her again."
Oh my god! By name. Called out by name.
Ugh.
Horrifying. They know us.
Mm-hmm. So we get to the projection room, and Joseph isn't there, of course, because he's outside with the press conference, but we do find that the PA system is still on. So somebody was just in here.
Oh my god.
But we do also, you know, we figure out which buttons are the ones for the Houdini trick, and if we, you know, use them correctly, we can actually get the cages to lower down. And then if we go back into the house of the theater, we see the cages are there. They're on stage, and Nancy goes up, and she can, like, see that there's mirrors underneath the cages to make it look like they're floating, but really they're not. There's the secret passageways that, like, go under each cage and then to the tunnel that leads between the two cages. So we actually do get into the cage and then go down into this little tunnel passageway. And then there's just, like, this little peephole light thing.
It's like a broken light fixture. It's like a light fixture that's, like, out of its, like, whole
socket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whatever.
So we can go and, like, use it as a peephole, and we look through it, and we're, like, looking down into what we'll later learn is the magician's room. And we can see, like, a light fixture is kind of blocking our view of some of the floor of this space, but we see some feet sticking out from under the light fixture and some pizza boxes on the floor. And the feet are kind of moving a little bit, but they're tied up.
Maya!
It's Maya. She's here. She's in the building. I can see her. I just have to figure out a way to get to her. And clearly she's alive because we can see that she's moving, but there's no way to get from this little secret tunnel that we're in down below us into the magician's room.
Why is Nancy not shouting through this hole? I would
screaming for Maya.
Be screaming Maya's name.
So then we back away from the peephole, and then the trap doors that, like, lead up into the cages automatically shut. And it's dark in there.
So scary.
Luckily, though, you'll notice that there's a trap door in the floor of this little tunnel that we're in. Fantastic. Another secret passageway. We love it. So we get down into this trap door, and then there's some stairs that lead from where the trap door are down further into, you know, below the building. And then we see that there is, like, if we turn to the left off of this tunnel that we've entered a new tunnel from leaving the stairwell that we were just in. Turn to the left, there's, like, a slider puzzle on the wall, and then if we go to the right, there is, like, a stage lift and then another trap door. We learned that there is a seat in the audience that is actually, like, a false bottom seat, so if you, like, open it up, that was in the diagram.
Knew that.
Yeah, so one of them you can open up the bottom seat, and then it leads down. There's, like, a little mini elevator that's only big enough for one person's feet to just stand there. So you just get on it, and then it lowers you down. So this, I think Houdini had used this to get from the stage, and then all of a sudden he's just in the audience, which is really cool. It's a neat concept. So we go to, like, that little lift thing, and the bottom part of the chair isn't opening, but we can hear somebody out in the house of the theater, and so we start shouting, and then Joseph, we can hear him from the other side, and he's like, "Oh, hold on one second, this is, like, this trap door is
Stuck, yeah.
kind of rusty. It's stuck. Let me get some WD-40 or whatever. So he sprays it. He manages to get it open. And then he hands us the can of WD-40 and is like, here, go use this on that slider puzzle that the pieces of it won't actually move. We tried to click on it previously, but we can't actually move it. So he gives us that. We tell him, hey, we found Maya under here. And he's like, oh my gosh, go get her here as fast as you can. Go get her. Make sure she's okay. So we get back over to the slider puzzle. We do the puzzle and we get into the magician's room because it's, you have to unlock the slider puzzle to unlock the door that gets into the magician's room. But now we're here. We're in the musician's room.
Musician's room.
We get into the magician's room and Maya is nowhere to be seen.
God.
There's a pile of pizza boxes on the floor, just kind of, half eaten. And then there's her shoe that we just saw that she was wearing. And no Maya.
We have to talk about this later.
Yes, there's the logistics of this whole thing. We have
Yes.
to talk about all of it because there's a lot of plot holes here.
Mm-hmm.
But this room is actually kind of cool. It's just, clearly just a place for the magician to hang out before they go on stage. There's like a nice little chair. There's a bookshelf with some books on magic stuff. There's a guillotine in the corner. And then there's like a little chest full of, magic props and stuff like that. There's a pair of rubber gloves in the trunk, and Nancy's like, hey, I'm going to take these because rubber is shockproof.
So horrifying.
Yeah.
What a scary thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just pick up the gloves and Nancy goes, rubber shockproof. It's like, oh God. Why are you telling us that, Nancy?
But then if we look a little bit more closely at one of the walls in the magician's room, we see that there's like this little outline. So another secret passageway. We get that open and we find ourselves back in the basement, the same room with the animatronic magician game and the safe in the wall where we found the Houdini, the letter where it says he gets 50% of the theater. And we see that the door to get back up to the trap door that was under that crate in backstage, there's now a metal gate that is closed in front of that door, and it is electrified. Someone has like put what are they called? Jumper cables.
Yeah.
On this gate, and so now we can't open it without getting electrocuted.
Why? Why don't you just lock the gate or put something in front of it? Why? Who's gonna take the time? This is my thing. Okay, let's say that somehow this kidnapper, who we don't know who it is yet, right? Manages to realize that Nancy's about to find Maya, gets Maya out of that room in the nick of time, escapes through this way, and then electrifies the gate behind them to stop me. You mean in the middle of you rushing to get this woman to a second location, do you take the time to stop? I guess just put Maya on the ground because her hands and feet are tied up. She doesn't try to escape, right? That's fine. And take the time to like split some wires, attach jumper cables to like an open electronic panel, and then to this gate? Why?
So that we can have a puzzle that's not even really a puzzle, it's just a process of elimination game. Not even a game, but just, pushing buttons in a process of elimination thing. But using the rubber glove icon to click on these things so that Nancy doesn't get electrocuted.
It's so dumb. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
You want to take it from here?
Sure. So eventually, if we push the buttons in the right order, we can get out. And after escaping, we run right into Brady. And we're like, Brady, did you see Maya go past here just now? And he's like, no, he didn't see anything suspicious. But now, we have evidence that Maya was in the building. Like, we just saw her. Like, there were pizza boxes, and her shoes are still in there. So,
and we do tell Brady about the evidence as well, because he evidence? What? In this building? No. Like, he's very weird about it. So.
Mm-hmm. But so now we can go call Sergeant Ramsey. So off we go to do that. And finally, he says this is enough for him to send over a car for someone to come investigate. Finally, thank God. And then, we can go tell Joseph, because Joseph is the one who rescued us. We can tell him we lost Maya again. And he tells us that he'll wait for the police and that we should, again, go back to our hotel to get some rest. Okay, great. Thanks. So this is the end of day 2. And then at the beginning of day 3, whenever we come back to the theater, we see like the exterior of the building, right? And it's clearly being prepped for demolition. There's like a big wrecking ball outside, and then like a police car also parked like right up near the front. And then when we get like transported into the ticket booth or whatever, there's like a newspaper in there with a headline that says "Kidnapper demands $50,000." And then in the article, it says that the police were contacted directly by the kidnapper and that the kidnapper made this demand for $50,000. The call was traced to a payphone in Granite City, which I don't know where that is. I guess it's a nearby city. But because the ransom call made no reference to the theater, the police no longer believe that the kidnapping is related to the demolition and that it should not stop the demolition from occurring. What? Okay, we have to talk about this later too. Why? Why? I don't get it.
I'm sure they've received hundreds of calls at this point, especially because there's, Brady Armstrong is going to give you a reward if you call the police with information. How many calls do you think they actually got? How many calls do you think were actually credible? Like, anybody could have called and made that ransom phone call.
It's just so irresponsible, because it's like all you have to do is just say, we're just going to postpone the demolition until we have time to thoroughly investigate. That's all you have to do. And like, I'm sorry if that means that the owner of this building has to lose some money, or like, I don't know, whatever. Clearly a crime has been committed at this location, and you're about to let it be demolished? That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so there's also a note from Joseph in the ticket booth that says to come see him in the projection room. So we can go up and do that. He tells us he thinks that this ransom call is a hoax, but the police obviously don't, right? He tells us, though, that when the police arrived last night, they couldn't find the pizza boxes or the shoe in the magician's room.
Interesting.
Joseph even goes so far as to like imply that we were really tired and maybe we didn't see what we thought we saw. We really wanted to find Maya, and so maybe that we just thought that we saw her because we really wanted to.
Sure.
This is gaslighting.
Yeah.
Clearly the evidence must have been moved by someone. And, I mean, unless Brady told Simone about it, or Brady told Nicholas, or Joseph told Nicholas, or Joseph told... Only Brady and Joseph knew about it.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if Brady blabbed about it to everyone. He knew, though.
True. This is also when we learn that the demolition is literally just hours away. Like, we have to, like, leave this theater, right? But Joseph is, like, weird about it. He tells us that he was up late polishing the lobby because old habits die hard, even though it's, like, literally going to be demolished. It's like, what the heck, dude? What is really going on?
Sad and creepy.
He tells us he also fixed the old key machine and says we can give it a whirl if we want. It's like, Joseph, you spent your time fixing a machine in the lobby before this place is about to be demolished?
One, I don't see why some of these things weren't sold off before the building was demolished. Like, you can probably get good money for antique theater seats.
Oh my gosh,
and they were just gonna, like, let all the debris fall on them and let them be destroyed? I feel like that key machine could have gone for some good money. That's besides the point.
All
but
these
like,
old machines. I mean, at least all of the equipment in the projection room.
The projection room could like be a museum, basically. Yeah, it's cool, really old equipment.
Well, and also like the movie screen is still in there.
Right.
The curtains on that thing.
Oh, the curtains alone, yeah,
have to be $10,000. I don't know.
all
Like,
these historical things that belong to Harry Houdini? Like, none of that could have
seriously.
been salvaged? Not even, like, the signed posters on the wall or
And you
anything like
didn't
that?
even do a search of the building to just see if there was anything that you wanted to keep or like sell off or make money off of. Like,
Right.
so
Surely he
stupid.
would rather, like, keep one of those brass knobs for himself than polish it so it looks good when it's destroyed.
Right.
Like, if it's really
Right.
that sentimental to you, just take one.
Or, I mean, like, dude, if you're wanting to open a theater in Greasewood, Arizona, which is what you said your plan is, steal all this crap and take it there.
Take that projector. That's free.
That's free.
Take that curtain.
Nobody's gonna come looking for it.
Right.
You know?
That's crazy to me. Anyway, none of this is
Anyway.
relevant to Maya, but
Anyway,
it's still, yeah.
So Brady is also still here for some reason in this theater, even though it's literally hours away from being demolished. Why hasn't he and Simone left yet?
Their premiere was canceled days ago.
Yeah, why
what
are they
business
still
do
here?
they still have? Yeah.
And he's also for some reason pissed that Nancy, he says, is quote unquote hanging out with that Falcone jerk. What is this? What is this about? First of all, why does Brady care who we consort with? Two, why are you here? It's so weird. We have to talk about this. Is this supposed to be like a, boys are fighting over Nancy scenario? Like Brady is into Nancy and he doesn't like that Nancy might be associating with Nicholas Falcone, who is like the only other of age guy here that Nancy could be interested in? Because I don't like that.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Anyway, we asked Brady, because now at this point we're really pissed at Brady too, because we think he's the one who moved that evidence, which I do, right? And we asked him, where were you at the time of the kidnapping? And he tells us that he was late getting back from a haircut. He also freaks out about the prospect of his hairline receding, which is a little bit funny. And then moving around backstage, Nancy's almost hit by a falling stage light. It's a great moment. You can definitely die and have to do a second chance here. Also, backstage in the women's dressing room, we can confront Simone about sending the funeral wreath because we found that in her purse the other day. And the pictures of Brady with the press pass all over the theater. She deflects and basically calls us crazy. And that we've been under a lot of stress with the whole, Maya thing, and she understands, or what. It's just everybody's gaslighting Nancy, and it's so frustrating. But eventually she does admit to sending the wreath, but she says it's not because I kidnapped Maya, it's just because she wanted something for the press to look at, to focus their cameras on. What an awful woman.
So disgusting.
Anyway, at a certain point, Brady will leave his dressing room, and there will be a briefcase that he's left behind that wasn't there before. This always happens. Okay. Give just a quick aside. Whenever we're getting to the close end of a game, there's always going to be a new object in some location that we just wasn't there before. And typically I feel like when I originally played this, I was so in on it being Brady, on Brady being the culprit, 100%. This was, of course, a long time ago when I was a child, so let's all remember that. But the fact that this briefcase just pops up in his dressing room, I'm like, the evidence gotta be in there.
There's a pizza box in that briefcase.
So we can go look into that. And inside of there, he has a self-help book on confidence.
And inside of that self-help book is a little pamphlet. I don't know if you noticed this, but the pamphlet he's been reading about. No, it's about pet horoscopes.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
What? It's kind of cute, but
oh my gosh. So Brady's maybe just trying to work up the confidence, right, to confront Simone. Okay.
I think he does have something else on hair loss, though. You're right. He's definitely very self-conscious.
There's an ad or a clip, something he has that says Progain.
Yeah.
Instead of Rogaine, it's Progain for hair growth. He clearly has self-confidence issues.
Oh, yes.
Self-image issues. And so this is supposed to explain that to us. That's genuine. That's not really a put on to kind of escape responsibility, right?
Well, and his agent is gaslighting control freak, so
Right.
that's like,
Yeah. It's not necessarily surprising. So, also in his bag, though, we find something else of importance, and that is Maya's notebook. What?
That's evidence.
Yeah, so we open it up, and inside the notebook is a list of questions that Maya must have been preparing to ask Brady for the interview that she was going to conduct. And one of the questions asks if he has any history with the Royal Palladium, and then there's a question that says to hit him with the evidence. What evidence? Evidence of what? But it doesn't say in Maya's notebook. But that's very interesting.
Maya's amazing.
She is. So Brady immediately enters the room after we back out of snooping from inside his bag, and we confront him straight away about Maya's notebook. We're like, you did it! You have Maya's notebook! Where is she, Brady? And he says, he confesses, but he doesn't confess to the kidnapping. He says his name, his real name, isn't Brady Armstrong, it's Brady Thompson. B. Thompson. He says he changed his name for celebrity purposes, or Simone asked him to, or whatever, but he is actually the current owner of the theater. He is the great nephew of J.J. Thompson. Great twist.
Oh, okay. It's all
Great
coming
twist.
together now, yes.
Great twist. Also a great way to adapt the book in this moment.
Yes, this was an excellent way to combine things.
Stroke of genius by whoever decided to do that. So we ask him, like, dude, why won't you call off this demolition? Why won't you put a stop to this? He says, the theater's shabby, and it's just not the image that I want to project. He doesn't seem to care about Maya potentially being held in the building. He says he didn't kidnap her, and he doesn't think she's in the building, so whatever. He says he found her notepad in the basement with her press pass, and then from, like, reading her notes, realized that she was going to expose him as B. Thompson, and so I guess he doesn't care what's going to happen to her if she is here. Yep. What a tool.
Yep.
So he leaves to go, literally, he says, rally the wrecking crew. Which is, so it's not only that he is, like, letting the demolition going ahead, he's taking some kind of sick pleasure in it.
Yeah.
Which is very, very upsetting. But we're running out of time fast. Like, the wrecking crew is literally going to be knocking down this building in, like, maybe 30 minutes? Maybe? Right. So things are getting bad. But just as soon as we go out into the lobby, Nicholas tells us that a package came in from the Library of Congress. So Sherman Trout came through.
Sherman, you made yourself useful.
So we go onto the ticket booth and get it. We open it, and there's a letter explaining that Sherman couldn't find anything written by Houdini, but he did find a letter from a close friend with some information in it, but he doesn't say what it is, and it's on a slide that he enclosed in the letter. Okay, so how are we going to look at this slide, Corey?
Well, we do have an old projector at our disposal.
We do, don't we?
We do.
You want to take it?
Sure. So we head right up to the projection room. Joseph's not in there right now because he is off, helping with, I guess, the demolition crew getting ready. And in the projection room, we find a book on how to operate the projector, but you need a key to open the panel. Luckily, there's now a working key-making machine in the lobby. So we have to not borrow a pencil. We steal back Maya's pencil from Brady's briefcase because it had been with her notebook, right? So we get the pencil and we shade the indentation of where the key had been in this book, and then we use the key machine to make a copy of the key imprint that we found. And then we go back upstairs and we unlock the projector. And as soon as we get the projector unlocked, we hear a voice come over a megaphone and say, all right, final sweep of the building. People are coming around to make sure everyone's out, basically. So Nancy, rather than clearing out and, making sure that she's safe and that she won't also be killed in this demolition, she hides in a cabinet in the projection room.
Well, no, I mean, we have to hide Nancy. as
Right.
a player, otherwise we'll be found. Which is like, I'm sorry, this is what we're telling children to do?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
ill-advised. Anyway, sorry, continue.
So we hide in the cabinet. We hear a voice like, come, open the door. Hey, anybody in there? Nah, all clear in here. And then they leave. Door closes back. And then Nancy pops back out of the cabinet and gets back to work on the projector. She opens up the thing on the side of the projector that we needed the key for. And we actually find another slide like inside the mechanical part of the projector. And we're like, that's weird. And we take it, we look at it. It's the original blueprints of the theater that we'd been looking for this whole time. So we go to put those blueprints into the projector and turn it on so that we can see what it is and look at it. And then the spark plug goes out on the machine. Luckily, there's another one in the room, so we just have to swap it out real quick. And then we can read this letter that Sherman Troutson does, and we can look at the blueprints.
Well, not yet.
You're
The
right.
focus button falls off.
You're right. So we swap out the spark plug, and then we go to like put the projector or put the slide in the projector slot for the slide, and then we turn the focus knob to like, get it on the screen correctly and everything, and the focus knob just falls off. Great. All right. This thing really is super old, isn't it? So we have to like crawl around on the floor underneath the like control panel booth table, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then while we're down there, we find a tape recorder and an electronic voice changing machine. So we look at the voice changing machine. Obviously it doesn't really do anything unless you're actively trying to change your voice, but then we press play on the tape recorder and we hear Joseph's voice. Testing. Is this thing on? Testing. These are the exact same words that we heard when Maya was screaming in the dressing room at the very start. That's, Joseph's alibi. Where were you? I was up in the projection room testing things. Okay. All right. So
Joseph is the kidnapper.
So we know that Joseph is the kidnapper. Yeah. So we get the focus knob back. We put it back on. We actually get the projector up and running this time. We put the letter in, and we see that it's a letter from another musician, like responding to Harry Houdini's letter. So it's a letter back to him saying that basically we learned from this that Houdini was planning to leave the theater to an artist, like a struggling young artist that he knew, that felt like he felt that artist was really deserving of getting ownership of the theater, but he just didn't specify the name of this person. So, and then we're able to swap out the slide and look at the blueprints for the building, and we learn that there is yet another secret space in this theater that we didn't know about before, because we thought we found all the secret passageways so far, right? Very wrong. We actually see that there is another passageway that you can only access from the projection room itself, and it's the old ice depository of where they used to keep massive chunks of ice in basically the ceiling rafters of this building to keep the house cool back before, air conditioning was a thing, because there's not really any windows or other way to get airflow in this room. So clearly that, because it hadn't been used or hadn't been relevant for a long time, so that had clearly been sealed off some long time ago, and nobody really needs access to that space anymore. Right. Were you about to say something?
Yeah, never mind. I realized that we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we start to like try to find how to like get into like try to like find how to access this secret place from inside the room, because in the blueprints it clearly shows that you can access it from in this room. And all of a sudden the door to the projection room swings back open, and it's Joseph, and he's like, "How you doing, Nancy? Tomorrow I'm really gonna get things cleaned up in here." And Nancy's like, "No, Joseph, the demolition is happening now. You need to tell me where Maya is. She's in danger. She's about to die. You need to tell me." And he's like, "No," he's just like in this fugue state, basically. He's just like fully not aware of where he is or what's going on. He's like, I think the premiere's going to sell out. Do you think it's going to do really well? Brady seems to be great in this movie. There's going to be a big crowd here tomorrow. We're going to sell out, and I'm going to clean up, and, I'm going to replace that other thing tomorrow and fix that light." And Nancy's just like screaming at him, "Tell me where Maya is." And he says, "Nope." And he leaves. And the door closes again. And then he also tells us, don't tell the police that she's here or they'll knock the building down. They'll take her away and they'll take away the theater as well. They'll knock it down. And then he leaves and he locks us in.
Ugh.
But we know about the secret passageway now. So if we can just find it, maybe we can find Maya still. Maybe there's still hope. So eventually we figure out if we flip the light switch, it will, or actually no, there's an outlet, like a plug box. And if you open that, inside of that is the light switch,
Yeah.
which is crazy clever. And that pulls a ladder down, like from the ceiling. So we climb the ladder, and up there is a locked door. And we don't have the right key, but then we find before the locked door is like another wall safe, and we open that up, and there's like 10 keys in there. We have to figure out which is the right one to use. It's the one on the top row. It's the pink one. That's how you know which one it is. It's the pink one. Always remember that. We also find in there another old document, and it is actually a letter from J.J. Thompson to someone named Hiram. And he says that Houdini ditched the theater and left it to some anonymous woman. And then we also find another piece of paper in there, and it is a contract that says that Houdini is leaving his share of the theater to Louisa Falcone. And then there's the signature line, and Harry Houdini is signed, and then there's another signature line for Louisa Falcone, and it was never signed. So that makes me think.
About this.
Yeah, that makes me think that maybe she didn't even know that she inherited, she was left this property, which is so sad to think about. But anyway, we take that pink key from the top row, we unlock the door, and we get in there, and we are in the ice depository, and there's Maya, locked in a little like cabinet where a block of ice would have gone back in the day.
That's what because I in my mind I had forgotten that that's what that was, that it was an ice depository, and I thought it was like a furnace for some reason. Please forgive my incoherent.
Oh no! I see the furnace. Yeah, no. That's still just as scary though. Yeah, horrifying. So scary. And also she's like, tied up and gagged in there, and she's like, she sees Nancy, and she's like, oh my gosh, she starts screaming. We try to like open this little door to the thing that she's locked in. You can't open it. There's like a sledgehammer in there. You can try to like break the glass. You can't break the glass. The only other thing in this room, other than like some other mechanical equipment, is a small window that you can see out to the front face of the theater, and I guess like out into the street. And just outside that window, you can see the marquee of the building. Because remember, we're at the very, very top of the building at this point. And we hear an announcement come from outside that the demolition is going to start in just 3 minutes. So now we have 3 minutes to save Maya, get out of this building, or we're both going to die.
Oh my God.
So Nancy has this idea. All right, let's light up the marquee to signal to everybody outside that we're still in here, right? So we have to look around. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Do they not cut the power to buildings before they demolish it?
They should.
So, if they did do that, then how on earth does this work? And also, if they didn't do that, there's gonna be a fire. Like...
Yeah, pretty quickly.
Anyway, sorry. Continue.
And probably also, like, the water would need to be cut off, too. Otherwise, there'd be a flood, and, like,
you have to cut
I don't know
off
if they
all
turned
the
off the water or not, because they don't, there's no running water in the game for us to...
You're knocking it down with a wrecking ball.
So this probably isn't the most airtight plan in reality.
Also, okay, this might just be a good time, too, to say... I know that, like, in the book it was not this way, but in the game they definitely show us the outside of the theater. And it's in, like, downtown St. Louis, and it's in, like, a row of buildings, It's not just standalone. It's, like, next to other businesses that don't have close signs or anything on them. So how are they knocking this building down with a wrecking ball?
Seems very dangerous. You can certainly demolish a building that's directly, in a line with other buildings. It happens, but not in this,
not like this. Yeah. That's just, I don't know. That's crazy. Anyway.
Yeah. So we have less than 3 minutes at this point, and Nancy's decided to light up this marquee that definitely still has power going to it for some reason. And Nancy notices that there is a power switch, like on the opposite side of the wall. The room is kind of U-shaped for some reason. Like the thing that Maya's trapped in is kind of in the center of the room, so she has to like go forward past Maya, sees the window, turns left at the window, turns left again, and then she's like in another little like path that goes up to the back wall that has the light switch controls on it, right? So we run up to the light switch controls, ready to flip the lever, and who jumps into the room and steps in front of it and blocks us from doing it? Joseph. He's back. And Nancy's like, Joseph, what are you doing? Get out of the way. We're all going to die if you don't move so that I can turn on this marquee. And he goes, nah, Nancy, we're all going down in a blaze of glory.
That is he also says it in like a horrifying Southern accent.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're going down in a blaze.
Blaze of glory, Nancy.
Oh my god!
So Nancy, of course, like starts screaming at him. Nothing's working. But then we remember that little prize that we got from the game closer, the little magician's game in the basement, closer to the start of the game, that flash trick ring with the flash paper on it. So what do? Nancy pulls it out, pulls the flash paper. It causes the smoke. It flashes in his eyes. It disorients him. And he, steps aside. Nancy manages to jump in front of him, pull the switch, and then we hear a voice from outside, stop the demolition! And then the marquee, the lights on it start going crazy and everything. And that is the end of the game. And then we just get a little letter to Bess, a little summary at the very end here. So we learn that Joseph, he admitted that actually he did plan to originally kidnap Brady and, was waiting in Brady's dressing room for him to come back and did that because he wanted Simone to like use her Hollywood leverage to like save the theater because she was, she would have had this incentive to save Brady as well. But then when Maya came in first, he just panicked, grabbed her instead, and then, tried to, all right, replan what I'm going to do here. And he's figured maybe I can just use this to like stall the demolition long enough to give the Historical Society more time to get this declared a landmark. Obviously that didn't work, but he just couldn't imagine his life without the Royal Palladium, so he felt pretty desperate to save it. He also says that he was actually, kind-ish to Maya during the kidnapping. I guess as kind as you can be. He made sure that she had food and stuff, which I guess was nice, and thought that Maya's testimony would help him at his trial, which...
What?
Okay.
No, Nancy says this. So Nancy says that Joseph was courteous and kind to Maya, and that Maya's testimony should help Joseph.
Right.
What?
Yeah, very...
Like, absolutely not. He kidnapped her. It doesn't matter if he did it nicely.
Yeah, he could have gotten her killed. And like at the end there was trying to make sure they all died.
And trapped in an ice depository.
She's lucky there was oxygen in that blocked box. Like,
seriously?
Goodness. So, great. So we also learn, or we know now, of course, that Luisa Falcone inherited that 50% of the Royal Palladium. And then, of course, Nicholas is now her heir, so now he owns it. And Brady ended up picking a different location for his future movie megaplex and decided to donate his 50% of the Palladium to the St. Louis Historical Society. So the Royal Palladium, through, the Historical Society and Nick Falcone's dedication to this, it is going to be restored to its former glory. So I guess that's good news. We learned that Simone got an official reprimand from the National Press Corps.
I don't know what that means. I don't even know what that is.
But hey,
cool.
At least now Maya is safe and Nancy's headed home. And we'll never hear about Maya ever again.
Oh my god. True, yes, goodbye to Maya.
Her picture's in Nancy's desk in Alibi and Ashes, but otherwise there's no reference to her ever again.
So sad.
So that was the final scene.
Okay. We have to talk about Joseph. We have to talk about this because, oh my god. Okay. First of all, we talked a lot about this in the original, the final scene episode we did over the Nancy Drew File book. And about him just being portrayed as being so elderly and like mentally like not all there, right? And so that a lot of this like crime was committed by someone who didn't have an understanding of what they were doing or even where they were or what like reality was, right? And how horrifying that is as like a, you know, as like a motive for a crime. It's just like somebody who just doesn't have an awareness of reality. But the thing about, and that's equally horrifying. That's just as horrifying in this, and as when Joseph like comes up to the projection room and seems to like not have a sense of what is going on right now. That the theater is about to be demolished. It's very scary and frightening, and like puts a real like just such a realness to the game that I feel like a lot of the rest of them don't have. Because it's like, what do you do when like how you can't reason with someone who can't like who doesn't have context, you know, like you can't. So, but also, okay, why, how is my question in this game, not the why but the how.
Oh, the logistics of the kidnapping.
The logistics, because this okay, I understand that he's worked in this theater for 40 years. There's probably more secret passageways. You could reasonably say there's a lot of different ways that he knows to get around the theater that we don't, and quickly. I would understand. I would get that. No. He is, okay, in a situation where we are below stage and we are like looking into the magician's room where Maya is bound and gagged, and then we literally go talk to Joseph. We see him face to face and he gives us the can of WD-40 for us to go, you know, spray down and complete the puzzle. You're telling me that in the time it took us to do that and get into that room, he managed to find a different way down in there, get Maya out, and electrify this gate, and we never caught him, and Brady didn't see him, no one saw him?
Both times that he moves Maya, or the initial time that he kidnaps her, and then when he moves her, neither of those make any sense. Because the first time, he's waiting in Brady's dressing room, and then grabs Maya, takes her through the secret passageway around the back of the dressing room, re-enters the women's dressing room where Simone is on the phone,
then takes from there.
Right,
because
calls
also that's
Nancy
where the
from
call
in there.
comes from.
Yeah. And at this point, you know, we don't hear Maya in the background. And the voice changer is up in the projection room. So how is he using that? And then takes Maya back out into the backstage area, like out the front door of the women's dressing room, into downstairs, like where, because to get to the magician's room, I guess he could have gone through the house and like taken her through that false seat. Either he went through the false seat in the house, or he went through the trap door that has the crate covering it.
The crate's on it,
Right, and then would have had to take her from the basement through the secret passageway that gets into the magician's room.
And then get back up into the projection room to call us directly after the first call from the kidnapper came through.
Right, which is like less than a minute. And I get that it would have taken Nancy quite, like, if it's your first time playing and you're a child, her interactive could reasonably say, all right, it might take them a couple of minutes to find their way into the secret passageways. But there's not that much stuff in the room. It really should take you less than a minute to do all this.
But
there's no way he could have done that.
It's not even, that's not the issue for me. The issue is the time between the calls.
Yeah, it's so fast.
We don't have, I don't think we do anything to trigger the call. It's like literally the first call happens, we back up. I think you can turn maybe a couple times, maybe.
But then the phone instantly rings again.
And then the phone instantly rings. So he has gotten her, he called from the women's dressing room where he presumably had her. Maybe you could consider that, maybe Simone was off somewhere else, maybe.
But then she's already there mid-phone call by the time we get into that room a minute later. So she must have just come in, just started that phone call.
But so he's over in the women's dressing room calling us with this audio distorter, hangs up, gets Maya down into the magician's room, or maybe he takes her somewhere else. Maybe he doesn't take her there immediately. Maybe he puts her somewhere else. But then he has to get all the way up into the projection room to call us
make the next phone call,
which is, it's literally like, it's like 30 seconds. It's after the first call.
If that,
it's not a long time. So this 60-year-old man has to
or older, yeah.
carry or somehow manhandle a grown woman by himself and make it from the women's dressing room to the projection room in less than 30 seconds? No way.
And then when he moves her, so we see Maya, we know that she's in the magician's room. Like you said, we see him in the house because he's on the other side of that trap door with the false seat, or the trap door that's in the false seat. He hands us the WD-40, and then while we're solving this very simple slider puzzle that takes maybe 30 seconds, he runs from the house, backstage, goes down to the basement, comes back to the magician's room, grabs her, and then, like you said, comes back out, gets the jumper cables, electrifies the fence, and then takes her back up into the backstage area where Brady already is walking around. Brady doesn't see them, and then managed to get her all the way across the theater. So either goes through the house, like goes from backstage through the house back into the lobby, past Nicholas Falcone, who doesn't see them, or he goes into one of the hallways around the side and then back into the lobby. Either way, we have to go to the lobby. And then upstairs into the projection room, and then up into the secret room from there.
Even considering the fact that there could be additional secret passageways in this place that he knows about that we don't,
Sure.
it would still be incredibly complicated and hard and fast for him to accomplish all this. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
It doesn't make any sense.
It does not.
So, theory time. Accomplice? I don't know who would do it, though. I mean...
Joseph's brother. Just kidding. Oh,
yeah.
We didn't mention this. We find out
that's right.
in the course of our investigation, Joseph's brother is already dead. And so he was lying to us about moving to, like, open the theater with his brother.
Right. Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe Brady was helping more than he's willing to admit.
I mean, the only other person I could think of is Nicholas Falcone, because Simone wouldn't do it.
He's innocent.
But I know. We wouldn't suspect Nick. He's too cute.
Oh, I do like Nicholas Falcone.
But I think, Nicholas has a history with Joseph. He's known him since he was a child. Nicholas doesn't want the theater demolished. So he and Joseph have that in common.
That's almost what happens in the book, isn't it? Because they really suspect him. And then that's when they go to his apartment to question him, but then they find Joseph there instead. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like that to be the theory, but it's the one that makes the most sense.
It's the only one that makes any sense. But it still doesn't make that much sense because, I don't know. But I just, he doesn't...
Again, Maya was not in on the plan and down with the cause, so I feel like he would have some moral qualms with that of like, hey, Joseph, what was the plan? And now this girl's tied up here. Maybe he was going to help him kidnap Brady, and then things went wrong and he backed out.
Maybe, but then how did he move Maya all around?
Yeah.
That's the reason why we were thinking accomplice. My thought is like, if the reason why I don't think it makes sense is because we tell Nicholas about the 50% stake from Houdini being passed to some mystery person, and Nicholas is researching that. If he were in on it with Joseph, why wouldn't he tell Joseph that? And why wouldn't Joseph latch on to that idea and try to help us with that, to try to stop the demolition?
True, yeah. Also, Joseph would have had access to the contract that Louisa never actually signed because he got into the room and it was with the key, so...
Right. So, I don't know.
I guess we could argue Joseph wasn't not in his right mind to recognize what that document was.
I suppose.
Jeez. Her interactive is a little ageist, I feel like. Yeah. Especially with this game. It's really bad with this game. There's some things in other games as well.
Yeah, and like the way they treat kids sometimes. So like Jane in Blackmore Manor. Well, actually that one's not so bad, but I'm thinking about Wet Wolf Bicycle Creek and Lucas.
Oh, yeah. I forget about Freddy, yeah.
Freddie and Lucas, I think, are pretty vilified, demonized.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
The Krollmeister sisters have an excellent episode on ageism in these games. Definitely go listen to that. I don't remember which episode it was, but I think it was just called like ageism in the games or something to that effect. But they really analyze like each instance of the ageism that occurs, and it's very interesting. I can't remember exactly what they argue. It's like everybody in the Nancy Drew games who's old is either senile or stupid or something like that. And if you break it down like that, it's so obvious. It's crazy.
Yeah. And you think about Millie
Oh,
Stratmore
yeah.
in Station for Danger. And
Yep.
a lot of our like older phone contacts even use Stacia and Drop Off in this game. I mean, she's a great character, and we love her for, you know, everything that she says, because she's hilarious. But like, she's like, I'm 96, I don't have time. It's like, kind of
And then her
questionable.
friend. We find out in a later game that she's friends with another phone contact that we have later on, Vivian Whitmore Westwood. What is her last name? Vivian Whitmore.
I was like, Vivian Westwood, that's a designer, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. Vivian Whitmore is friends with Eustacia and Drop Off. We learned that in Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake, and they're both just super old ladies, and and then Renata and the Captive Curse, they kind of treat her like she's silly,
just falling asleep all the time, and or
it's caricatures.
The old man in Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon in the diner, how he just the bell and the good night.
Old people can only either be there for comedic relief or senile. There's no in between. Which is wrong. And that's definitely not how it plays out in the book. If you guys have read that one, you'll remember that Joseph was very much in his right mind, very much was aware of what he was doing here. Different type of scary, I think. So.
Different type of scary. Yeah.
So. What else you got?
What was it? There was something else that I was like, we need to talk about. Oh, something interesting that I realized. So, well, we're going to talk about this too, is the ransom demand to the police. When the newspaper article about the ransom demand to the police. Did Joseph make that? Did he call the police?
Think it was some rando who just like wanted credit, you know, because they have this Brady's out for... I mean, or maybe he could have to like get suspicion off of him, but like, why? Wouldn't he want the police to be there investigating?
It makes sense to me to not be Joseph, because Joseph says later that he thinks it was a hoax, right?
Okay, yeah.
And you know, he wouldn't have said that if he wanted the police to think that it was real, and if he wouldn't have called if he didn't want the police to think it was real. But he doesn't say anything has anything to do with the theater, and so it just doesn't make any sense. But also, they asked for $50,000, and $50,000 is the amount that J.J. Thompson promised to Harry Houdini.
Oh, I didn't even catch that. You're right. Interesting.
And I thought that was interesting, because it seems like in 2001, as a kidnapper, you might ask for a little bit more than $50,000 for a person. You probably at least ask for $1 million. Like, that's only respectable. Like, I don't know.
At least $100K, not 50.
Right.
And
so it just
life is worth more than that.
It seemed really pointed, you know? It seemed like, why would you ask for that amount unless it had something to do with that?
Right.
But it wouldn't have been Nick, because Nick would have mentioned the demolishing of the theater, because he wants that to be over and done with.
Right.
But who else would know about it?
I mean, I guess everybody knows now that Simone's trying to, like, make it this big story and got a press conference going on.
I mean, well, and who knows about the $50,000 that J.J. Thompson promised to Harry Houdini?
You think maybe he just, like, unconsciously decided on that number and then made the call? Joseph did?
Joseph? Yeah. I think it must have been a slip-up. It must have been a slip-up, because the only other person who knows about it, or potentially knows about it, is Nick.
Nicholas.
And he wouldn't have done it, or he would have said something about the theater, about not demolishing the theater.
I mean, Brady very much could have known about it and just, like, you know, isn't going to admit that because he wants people to think that he has 100%. It very well could have been like an internal... it could have been internal family knowledge of like, oh yeah, we don't actually own this, but like the person who does own it doesn't know and never signed the contract, so we're just going to keep it quiet and hope nobody notices that we don't actually own 100% of this.
Well, no, I bet
Brady could have called.
made the kidnapping call because he
Mhm.
knows about that, and he wants the police to get off of this theater business so he
Right.
can go on with the demolition.
I bet it was Brady.
It was Brady.
I've decided
Oh!
it now. Yep, that's what I think.
Wow.
I've never picked up on the 50K thing. That's so interesting.
Well, because also, like, if that was like a large amount of money in 1925 or whatever, like, why that amount? It's just so low. It's such a low amount for a kidnapping.
How much would that have been? Let me get the inflation calculator up here. About $900,000.
Oh, so yeah, near $1 million.
Almost $1 million. And in 2001, $50,000 today would be about $86,000. So, yeah, not very much money, I feel like.
Yeah. No.
For a ransom, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's either Brady or it's just absolutely some rando who had no idea what they were doing.
Right.
Right. Wow. Wow. Wow.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What else you got about it?
Kind of talked about. Oh, okay. So we didn't really talk about our phone contact characters very much, but it's Bess and George we can call and talk to them. We can also talk to Ned. They don't really tell us anything interesting.
They're really just there to give us hints. Yeah.
Right. But Bess and George do have a weird sign off. They simultaneously say at one point, "Watch out for weird people."
Yep.
What is that? What the heck is that? Is that a reference to something?
I don't know. I think everyone here is a little bit weird, so maybe
I
that's
guess so.
supposed to be a joke.
Maybe.
I don't know.
That's so funny. Yeah. So that I was like, what the heck is that? Oh, what's your favorite place? Like, what's your favorite location in the game, Corey? Because it's such a great set.
Yeah.
Such a great setting. I have a very specific and very weird location.
Okay, what's yours?
I like the book. It's the ticket booth.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's so good. I don't know why, but I love a good hub of like admin. I love an admin hub. And also just like the like phone books, the old phone, the old computer, like, and like all the paper. I don't know. It's just it just feels like the most grounded part.
Yeah.
Like the most grounded setting or room in this theater. So I love it. That's my favorite one.
Nancy definitely does have like a home base location in most games, and usually that's like the bedroom where she's staying. Obviously we don't see that here. It feels like the ticket booth is her home base for this game. You know, it feels like, okay, this is a place where we can go to be safe in this game, because a lot of games there's only one place you can go to be safe. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I don't know. I guess just the house of the theater, because it's so pretty. I just like to look at it. It's so nice.
Yeah.
It just looks like a place that I'd really like to go in real life, you know. See a little
Yep.
show there. Maybe a magic show. That'd be cool. But
That's fun.
I don't know. I like all of it. It's all got excellent
It's
vibes.
all-
It's
it is
really
all
just
good.
it's flawless. The location is just flawless. I love it.
Oh, okay. So something I did want to talk about, and that I felt like was a marked shift in this game from like all of the rest of them, especially when thinking about, of course, Message in a Haunted Mansion, which we just finished, and that's because something I was so frustrated with Message in a Haunted Mansion is that we couldn't confront anyone with all the information that we found. This game is like a hard shift.
Oh, we almost only confront people.
We
It's
confront
excellent.
people every day with the new information that we find. It's such a shift. And it's such a good one, because it like allows us to not only, it's like we're not just like exploring and learning for our own sake. It's like we're actually investigating a mystery and interrogating our suspects. And just like I think allows the player to play such a more active role in the investigation. Such a good call. And I think that like there are moments in Treasure in Royal Tower, which is the game in between these two, where you can confront people, but not a lot. You can't really confront Mr. Egan. Can't really confront Dexter.
No.
You can't really confront Lisa until the end. You know, you can't really confront Professor Hotchkiss with anything. There's not really a whole lot to confront her with, but you can't like ask her about her video camera or any of that. Mishigas, like, so it's just, I feel
Jacques,
like
you kind of can confront,
he
but really,
can,
he's just terrible about it and then
and
blames
gets mad,
us, and
and
then
then
we
we can't
never
talk
speak
to
to him again.
Yes, yeah. So it's like it's such a shift from that. Like, I feel
Right.
like this is the game where they finally decide, okay, well, what we're gonna do is we're not just having a mystery where Nancy is gonna go around, learn it, and solve it by herself. Like, she's gonna have to, like, get in the weeds with these people in order to get to the resolution of this mystery,
Right.
which is just such a big change from the previous ones to this one, and such like a hallmark of like just how the games just keep getting better
Yeah.
and better
Oh, I
as
know.
like time goes on. They like really figure it out, you know?
Mhm.
So I love it.
So good.
One other thing, sorry.
Oh, no.
One other thing is that in this game, I remember struggling with this when I was young, and I can only imagine people would struggle with this a lot now as trying to play this game from 2001 in 2023, is that you have to know how an old school phone works.
The area codes. It's not consistent is the thing. Even if if you're, someone who grew up like actually using physical landline
Right.
phones, then sure, you might, not struggle with it. But even then, like, it's not consistent in what you need to do. Like, some
Right.
phone numbers you have to dial 1 before the area code. Some it won't work if you do dial the 1. Some it won't work if you if you don't use the local area code, it won't work. But then if you just call the last 7 digits, it will work for something that's in the area code. And it's never consistent with things that are local, if that makes sense.
And there's like no prompting for it in the game. It's like they don't list the numbers correctly.
Right.
And like, you don't, like, there's no way to know that that's the way that you have to do it unless you just know that that's the way you have to do it. And how would you know?
Yeah, so for every phone number, you have to try, okay, just the last 7 digits.
Every single one.
Okay,
Yes.
now all 10 digits. Okay, now 1, and then the area code, and then the last 7 digits. Every single phone number, you have to try 3 different versions, and it's really frustrating.
So that's, yeah.
Gen Z doesn't stand a chance. I'm
No.
sorry, y'all. It's so bad.
No, you're going to have to look at a walkthrough just to be able to call people on the phone. So that's one of my critiques of the game. And then also the puzzles, I think, is another critique that I have of the game. It's just that there's just
too
not
few.
enough.
Right.
There's not enough, and the ones that are there are not good. Like,
right.
I mean, the best one, I think, is probably the painting puzzle on the outside of the box in the basement.
Oh,
in,
yeah,
like,
that
day
one's
one.
nice. Yeah.
But it's just a puzzle. Like, there's nothing, very complicated about that. You just have to put the image together the way the image is supposed to look. It's not even
it's
a
really
slider
just
puzzle.
scrambled. Yeah, it's not
literally
like a
just
logic or anything.
No. Might as well be a jigsaw puzzle, So it's like,
sure,
that's the best one. So, wow. The rest of it's just about like finding the right things and knowing how to combine them to get to things, That's really it.
The key one might be cool if there was like a trial and error process to it, but
you just have to look at it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's literally just compare the shapes.
I mean, like, I guess the bee's knees one game in the lobby is probably the most puzzly that you get.
It's really easy though.
But it's really easy.
It's like, it's not a maze, but it's just like doing a maze, but then you can't run into the bad guys.
And they chase you. Yeah.
It's like Pac-Man, basically, but not. So it's not Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
But it's like that where it's just like your goal is to avoid the ghosts and get to the center.
And they use that type of game in a lot of different Nancy Drew games. That's present. So if you've played the other ones, it's familiar, but
they do reuse it in the next game that we're going to play. But we'll tell them that in a second.
They do. Yeah. But so other than that, I mean, so it's the puzzles, it's the phone calls, and it's just some of the plot holes. Like, I feel like it's just a little bit, like, Joseph is simultaneously the most suspicious and the least suspicious character in the game, and it's just because of logistics, and I feel like that's a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even mind the plot holes that much because it's
No, I
just
don't.
so
I
good,
don't.
and you're still like you got so much adrenaline when you're playing it, even though you're just sitting there clicking on your mouse. And
Seriously. The adrenaline is the next level. It's like, oh my god, I have to save Maya.
Yeah.
It's like, it's intense. The feelings are intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's effective. Anything you want to talk about, Corey?
I think that's pretty much everything. I could just sit here and praise it all day long,
I
but
know.
of substance, no, I think we've pretty much said it all.
Yeah. So good. So flashlight score?
5 flashlights, easy,
Mhm.
no problem, no question. What about you?
Oh, it's so hard. I don't know if I can give it 5.
That's okay.
Listen.
I'm trying to remember what we gave the book. I think I gave the book a 5 as well, but I don't remember what you said for it.
I don't either.
That's okay.
Hold on, let me think.
Not that the book and game scores have to be even remotely connected, but...
Right. It's not my favorite game. It's not. But that doesn't mean it doesn't deserve 5 flashlights. Because I think that this game is the most well-constructed game. Maybe out of all of them.
Yeah.
So, I'll give it 5. Yeah, give it 5
Yay.
flashlights. It deserves it. It deserves it.
It's not my favorite either. It's up there for sure. You know, there's definitely a special place in my heart just out of nature of it being my first one. But I mean, the later games definitely have more that they add to the whole structure of the game. So, you know, I guess it kind of loses some brownie points for that, but it can't really because, you know, it was only 2001. How much better could it really have gotten for 2001, you know? So I can't expect too much more of this game.
Yeah.
But 5 flashlights. Easy.
I think it's just so well done. Just immaculately put together, I think is how I would describe this game.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
You know,
and
like not a single thing was a mistake, except maybe the phone call situation.
Sure.
You could have done that better. But like not a single plot thing, a single dialogue option was a single poster on the metal cabinet in the projection room was out of place, you know, was wrong, was a bad decision. So like, hey, it deserves 5 flashlights.
I will say one thing I just thought of with the phone thing, because like you said, there's a button for each one of the other phones that are in the building that you can just call that room or that spot directly. On the phone in Brady's room that we actually used to receive the call from the kidnapper at the very beginning, I think one of the buttons is broken. My first time playing this, I can remember thinking that was going to come back into play later, that actually we're going to find out that the phone system is broken and the call didn't really come from the women's dressing room,
that would
that
make
it was
more sense
somewhere else in the building. You know, I thought that was going to come into play more, and it never did, but I thought that was kind of interesting that they made it to look like that. So
yeah.
But anyway. For what an amazing book it was, and it is an amazing one. So if you haven't read it, go read it. It deserved a game. It needed a game adaptation, and I'm so glad that they chose this book to make into a game.
Okay, but so next up, Regular Drews, we have another interactive game for you. This one is a big fan favorite, and
it's my favorite for sure.
It's Corey's favorite. It's probably it's probably my favorite too. It's I don't know. It's definitely on par with most of my favorites. You know, if it doesn't beat it out. But our patrons voted for this over on our Patreon page, so thank you, Gift and Gumshoes, for doing that. Corey, do you want to tell them what it is?
I absolutely do. It is game number 10, The Secret of Shadow Ranch.
Oh my god. Let's go back to the very beginning.
I know, I was about to say, if you guys remember, we did cover the book for our very first ever episode, so this is kind of like coming full circle, which is kind of crazy, but I'm so excited to cover it, because in my opinion, you can't get better than this game. So
No. Come
Lost
on,
Train to
Bob.
Blue Moon Canyon is very, very close, but I think this one takes the cake for me.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy this one better than Last Train Blue Moon Canyon.
Really?
I don't know. The thing is, I can't, you know what? I cannot rank these games. I can't do it. We're going to get to after we finish all of these games, I know we're going to have an episode or a scoop sesh or something where we attempt to rank our favorites of these games. I cannot do it. I will have a mental breakdown because it's just there are there are parts of each game that I love with my whole heart so dearly. And it's like trying to choose between my children that I don't have. But like, how am I supposed to choose between the animation on the Jake Hurley train where all the trains go up and down and up and down and up and down, between like Dave in Secret of Shadow Ranch? How can I make those choices?
Right.
It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem like I should have to. So
it's a tier, not a rank, right?
Yeah. We could do that. We could do a tier.
Yeah.
We could do a tier. Right?
Tiers are a lot easier than, 1, 2, 3, 4. So.
Yeah.
Well, this is top tier, regardless.
Top tier. Definitely.
And if it's not in your top tier, what
go
are you
play
doing?
it and change your mind.
Yes. Have you even played it? Just kidding. Everyone can have their own opinions. Just ours is right.
Because they reminded me of you. Your flower, what flowers on your favorites and your
your favorite flowers and your flowers on your favorite. I like vexing your brain because you're all pretty like when you're thinking.
Oh my god! Oh, you guys, we haven't even played it and started talking about it, and I'm already red in the face. Maybe it's like 85 degrees in my apartment right now.
Oh.
Anyway, I'm excited.
So you have to come join us for that one.
You have to come join us for that one.
You can't miss Shadow Ranch. It's too good.
And we'll see you on Regular Truths.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Regular Nancy Drew. Email us at regularnancydrew@gmail.com.
If you like this episode, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe.
You can also follow us on Instagram at Regular Nancy Drew and Twitter at RegularND.
You can also support us on Patreon. Patrons at the $3 level vote on upcoming episode topics and get exclusive access to our Scoop Sesh series.
And all patrons receive early access to each episode as well as weekly bonus content.
And to all you regular Drews out there, thanks for listening.